Okay. Let's leave this room briefly and find a debate. I'm going to review, I think, a Vaush debate this time. But I'm going to have to go back pretty far into the history of Vaush debates because I've seen most of them. And you guys know that I usually don't like to review debates that I've seen. I don't think, I think that's kind of not great. You know? Because, pre-watched or whatever. So I'm going to try to find one that I haven't seen. Or that it's been so long that I wouldn't remember. Which means it's gonna be, back in the days of Vaush having the man bun or some shit. I don't know. Fucking hell. Alright, where's that conservative socialism fucking debate? That one might be funny. But where would the value in that be? Oh, god damn it. Okay. I remember there being one. Okay, here. Look. Have you considered fascism? Debating Conservativehypehouse. Let's try that. It seems relatively topical. Select that. Show. Yes. Alright, so if you can see the title down there, it's kind of small. Have you considered fascism? Vaush debates Conservativehypehouse. Let's go. I actually haven't seen this debate, I think. So, this would be a first for me. Vaush. Ian Vaush. Many such cases.
Yo.
What's up, man?
Not much. Just probably going to be talking to a few hundred people today. How about you?
I'm doing
oh, yeah,
great,
this
actually.
was,
really...
for people who are more recent Vaush viewers, he used to do debates all the fucking time. Because you used to actually be able to debate people on the right, and they used to actually believe things. And I guess he did several per stream, or per day or whatever. It was pretty wild. There are reasons that you can't really do this anymore, because conservatism has kind of consolidated around a set of very fascistic policy objectives that are not things that you can really debate, because people don't believe them sincerely. Yeah.
They're really good.
I see you're wearing a MAGA hat in your profile picture.
I know that's a good way to start off a
We'll have
conversation.
lots to talk about. What's up? Are you participating in the traditional format of the call-in? Do you have a contention you would like to share with me? Disagreement?
Yeah. So I was telling Hyena, or that's the username, anyways. I apologize if that's not how you pronounce it, but
It's close enough.
anyways, yeah. So so I was wanting to talk about your thoughts on systemic racism in America.
Yeah, sure.
Another systemic racism debate.
So I know obviously we're going to disagree on this because I believe that systemic racism in America is non-existent because of the fact.
Yeah, spicy take.
Yeah, so I believe it's non-existent mainly because the fact that.
Okay, so to preempt whatever this guy's gonna say, I do want to sort of cut through the systemic racism doesn't exist. The position of most people that hold these beliefs is not that systemic racism doesn't exist, but rather that it exists and is fine. It depends on how, with how far right these people are tends to, change how much they believe this. Some people might actually just be dumb and not believe that systemic racism exists. But since this guy actually calls himself a fascist, I would be willing to bet that it is the case that, he believes it exists, he's just okay with it existing because he has some fucking very, white supremacist beliefs. Anyway, let's continue.
It has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And I do have
yes, the culture talking points.
So
yeah, it seems like
you would like me to go into that.
Sure.
What the fuck?
So let's get right into it. So
yeah, judging by the fact that he's going to culture, which means he's probably going to be arguing that black culture is morally worse than white culture. His position is most likely more accurately described as systemic racism does exist and it's good actually, because we're rooting out the degenerate culture or some shit.
Why don't you make your argument and then we'll get to it point by point.
Sure. So basically, my argument is that the system doesn't actually harm anybody of a specific race. generally, it usually comes down to culture and person-by-person basis. So why I say culture is mainly because it's descendant of what was formerly known as cracker culture,
What?
but is now modernly known as ghetto culture necessarily.
So okay, so we can simplify this a little bit. So essentially, your argument is black people get arrested more because they behave worse.
I mean, yeah, I would probably.
Yeah, okay. We
okay.
don't need to. Okay, so let's get right into this. So, black people and white people both consume marijuana at roughly the same rate, but black people get arrested nearly 4 times as often for that. So, I don't know what...
I think this is a good, like... I appreciate Vaush cutting through that whole nonsense, because I'm obviously not as good at debate as, like, anybody who does debate, like, really frequently, so I might have gotten hung up on that pretty easily. 4th place, not awful.
Restrictions you think police are subject to being held to, but if it is a distaste for the behavior of a community which leads to a 4 times disproportional arrest rate, I would say that's pretty evident of bias, especially...
Oh, also, I'll note that this guy doesn't, like... He mentioned culture and not class, which... Class would have been the more correct argument. Like, obviously, the way that systemic racism exists is that, like... people of low class are disproportionately harmed by certain like laws. Laws target people of certain classes, which ends up hurting black people more because, you know, the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow leads to black people occupying disproportionately lower spots on the socioeconomic class rungs of society. But that would be a material analysis of things. And fundamentally, conservatives like this guy, fascists like this guy, are anti-empiricist. They don't believe in the concept of forming beliefs based on empirical evidence. So they will usually try to gesture at some sort of observed something simply as a means of, like, obfuscation, or more so they will abuse empirical evidence when they try to use it.
Since this bias seems to carry forward to black people, regardless of their behavior, in communities that are not as ghetto as, I guess, what you would associate with the typical black community.
So I'm actually really glad you brought up that source, because I love talking about this one. So basically, that experiment was actually asking people basically how often they use marijuana on a yearly basis. It didn't go down to monthly. It didn't go down to weekly.
Oh, actually talking about the data.
That go down to a monthly basis of using marijuana and weekly basis of using marijuana. Whites are actually using it at a lower rate than blacks on a monthly and weekly basis.
On what level?
Oh, what do you mean, like on frequency of using it in that?
Yeah, like 1.2 times as much, 4 times as much. Like, what's the rate?
It's like, I think on the percentage rate, I think it was about nearly 20% more for monthly, and then the weekly was nearly 30% more than whites.
Okay, so that does not explain a 4 times difference.
But the 4 times difference also comes down to the fact that it's been proven.
See, this is what I mean when I said that, like, conservatives don't actually care about empiricism because they're anti-empiricist. Whether or not black people smoke more weed than white people or whatever doesn't matter insofar as criminalization of certain communities for a myriad of reasons. First among them being that, like, the drug usage is not, like, something that exists in a vacuum. Usually it's the like, a lot of times it's actually the disenfranchisement and systemic oppression that comes first before the drug use, because drug use can be often used as an escape. And then, of course, also, as Vaush distinctly pointed to, that, like, a minor difference in the usage of certain drugs would not explain something an order of magnitude larger, such as 4 times more arrests being made of black people than white people. Like, the thing that this guy tried to point to and then pivoted away from as an explainer as to why, like, oh, this is why black culture is actually degenerate, it doesn't fit. The empirics of what he's talking about, like, literally don't fit because they don't care about the empirics.
and off of surveys taken from marijuana users that white people usually are more prone to use marijuana with people that they are closer to and within secluded homes instead of open areas, whereas black people are more prone to do it with people that they are non-associated with, would be more prone than a white person to do it with people that they're non-associated with and in public areas.
Do you have any studies on that?
Yeah, let me pull up the statistic.
So you think that like black people just like are stupid and they just keep smoking in public areas?
No, I don't think that. I wouldn't. I'm not.
He does think that. That's the only line you could really draw from this, but like, God, the name of the game of conservatism used to be you had to sort of cloak your beliefs in a more reasonable aesthetic. Hence the obfuscation of certain beliefs behind like misinterpreting data. Like I said, it is a lot less effective to say I believe racism exists and it's good actually than it is to say I don't believe racism exists.
Considering this on like an unintelligent, oh well, that's just a dumb person. I'm just basing this on the fact that they're going to be. I think that off of this survey, it proves pretty much that they're more prone to in these ghetto areas do it in a more public area with people that just live in the neighborhood, but they don't necessarily know that person.
And this is an interesting nexus point of these arguments. He's saying that like, oh, people who live in a ghetto are more likely to do drugs in unsanitary and open environments, which is true. But that is a product of the socioeconomic class of a given area rather than like, I don't know, its racial character or something. What he's talking about, what he's alluding to here is way better explained by the fact that people are more desperate and willing to resort to drug use as a method of escape in poor areas than in wealthy areas. In wealthy areas, people like more consistently have homes to stay in when they do this sort of stuff, and like are able to acquire them by means that would enable them to like, I don't know, do drugs in private and whatever. It's purely in the suburbs. More frequently, it's a recreational thing than like a, I don't know, a tool of despair, which is like technically that's also recreational in a way, but like, it's more of that like abusing data when you try to use it. He's interested in the data point, but not the thing that the data point indicates. He's just interested in using the data point as an excuse to say, and see, this is why black people are worse, because black people live in these ghettos, and they do drugs out in the open, not mentioning the fact that that's a matter of proportions and not race, and it's more like a function of class than anything. I can't believe I fell off there.
Wait, so what is that? Not knowing the person doesn't mean that person's a cop. I don't think undercover cops are typically dressing up like 16-year-old like.
I'm not saying it's an undercover cop though. I wasn't implying that. I'm just saying that if that person isn't necessarily trustworthy, then how are you going to trust them by doing a criminal activity with them?
Do you think this might have something to do with the fact that stop and frisk rates are wildly disproportional based on race?
I don't think that it's race though, because honest to goodness, like even stop and frisk, you look at stop and frisk, and people like to say, well, it's just because the cops patrol the black neighborhoods more often.
It's because they select black people because they're racist. The disproportionate selection of black people for stop and frisk laws.
It is because of both of those things. The like broken windows policing is one of the practices that is like responsible for how much systemic racism exists. So black neighborhoods, being usually poorer than white neighborhoods, do get patrolled more often, and also cops are fucking racist, so they will identify black people as being suspicious more often than identifying white people as being suspicious.
In the states that employ them is massive. This is not a culture thing. This is regardless of neighborhood. Even with driving stops, which have nothing to do with culture, unless you think every black person drives around.
Yeah, that's right. There's like a lot of this racism actually transcends class lines. Like, a rich black person is still more likely to be stopped and frisked than a rich white person.
With like the low rider and the suspension that bounces while playing gangster rap or whatever, like I guess that would be like a black culture car.
Well,
but
that's
even
that's a very poor stereotype.
I've seen black people drive around. They look pretty much like white people driving around, but they still get stopped way more often for searches and for arrests, regardless of disproportionate rates of traffic laws being violated, which don't really seem to have that much to do with race. Looks like pretty much nobody respects driving laws in this country. There's a higher average conviction rate for black people in the criminal justice system. Black people get higher sentences for the same amount of priors in the same crime committed.
That's true. I mentioned this in the Destiny debate. That's the one of the most blatant forms of racism in modern America is in the justice system, where it just straight up black people get sentenced harsher for the exact same crime than white people, and get convicted more frequently as well. Yeah.
The amount of data suggesting that the criminal justice system is discriminatory against black people, not people of blank culture, but black people, is overwhelming. To ignore the plurality of data on this subject is to engage in delusional thinking. And I don't know why a person would want to ignore all that data unless they had a motivated reason to not want to believe racism exists in this country.
It's literally not ignoring the data. It's literally counteracting that data and exposing the flaws within that data. Just like the conviction rate one.
That is ignoring the data, by the way. So notice how we went from this guy saying systemic racism doesn't exist or whatever, and I have data to prove it, to him instead saying, well, actually, it's justified that black people get arrested more because of their culture or something. And now he's discarded both parts of his argument. His argument was systemic racism does not exist, and I have data to prove it. He abandoned the systemic racism part, and he also just now abandoned the data part of his argument. The first shift he made was to actually it's justified because black culture is worse than white culture. And then, like I said just now, he's now saying that the data is all illegitimate or something. You just make it past this part.
You just brought up.
Oh yeah?
So the conviction rate one you brought up does not account for the weapon used in those crimes.
Yes, it does. So, same crimes with same priors.
Same crimes, but yeah, okay.
And now he's gone to the excuse of the weapons that they used in the crime were worse. Doesn't matter. How the fuck do you do that part? God damn.
Okay, same crimes doesn't mean that it's the same weapon.
Do you have any evidence?
That, right?
Do you know what study you're referring to?
I can get second-degree murder as a black person would, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we both used a machete.
The weapon doesn't determine the amount of culpability necessary for committing the crime. If you commit a first or second-degree murder with a tool or with a gun, it doesn't make a difference. It's the exact same crime.
It is the exact same crime. You're right. But whenever you're actually coming down to the weapon used, it's going to sway the actual jury to decide, oh, yeah, well, that's probably a more heinous crime. You know, more heinous crimes would probably be, it's going to still be second-degree murder if you chopped up someone's body or if you shot him with one bullet in the head.
Yeah, how is it more heinous to shoot a person in the head than it is to chop up a person's body?
I'm not saying, I meant the opposite way around. The chop up someone's body is going to be obviously more heinous, but just because it's the same crime doesn't mean that they're on the same level.
So you just gave a counterexample.
God damn it.
A knife is
I can't do that shortcut.
It was more heinous than a gun. So how does the gun usage? Do you even know what study I'm referring to? Do you have any evidence that
So again, the only consistent through line in this guy's arguments is that he hates black people. He's they're now fixating on the subject of, oh, well, actually the reason that black people get arrested and incarcerated more is because of I don't know, the weapons that they use are more severe. Something that I have no doubt that if there were data that existed on this subject, could be proven false very easily. And regardless, even in as flawed a criminal justice system as we have, the weapon isn't the determining factor in the amount of prison time that you get. It is the like the crime itself. Like if you do second degree murder, like this guy said, with a knife versus with a gun, your sentence would be the same if you were convicted for it. It doesn't matter. Except in cases where there's race involved, in which case a black person would get a heavier sentence statistically solely by virtue of their race.
Not only does the weapon used affect...
But again, this guy's okay with that, so he has to obfuscate and bring up every conceivable factor that could influence this that isn't race. What's evidence I do my own research? Yeah, Facebook research.
That this study is failing to account for that?
So, okay, well, I'm not sure the exact source on that study, but I have read that study one time.
What study?
The conviction rate one. The conviction rate on African Americans.
But so do you have any like counter evidence on it, or
well,
you're just saying like, well, they didn't account for
premise,
this one thing that shouldn't actually factor into the sentencing length?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. I'm going to discredit that source because the fact that they didn't account for the weapon, which does...
I'm going to discredit that source because it doesn't support my argument. Walks away, doesn't elaborate.
It has everything to do with the case itself.
You need to prove... That would be like saying, like, you don't like the results of the study, so afterwards you're like, okay, well, they didn't account for what hat the person wore to court. Do they have any data on the hat? The hat can make a difference for jury, like, convictions. You need to provide evidence that, that was overlooked,
how legitimate
and B...
are source... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You have to provide evidence that A, they overlooked that fact, and B, that fact actually plays into the conviction rates.
Ow.
But in the absence of that
Fucking
data, the evidence that black people are disproportionately convicted is pretty overwhelming, especially since a lot of those convictions are for non-violent offenses.
That's a pretty good shortcut.
Drug offenses. Or are you going to tell me, like, they smoked weed in a more heinous way than white people or something?
They smoked weed menacingly, as opposed to white people who smoke weed non-menacingly.
On the usage and how frequent the usage is and where and how the usage is being...
Oh my god, he's actually...
He's
actually doing the bit.
Okay, but it doesn't matter though, because truthfully speaking, whenever back to the convictions, you know, but on the violent crimes, before we get to the non-violent crimes, what I was going to say before that is, yeah, you can obviously discredit a source if the variables haven't been controlled within the source. A source, obviously, a study that is going to be fully conducted is going to be discredited if all the variables are not.
Again, the thing that this guy's referring to as variables being controlled for are things that have no bearing on the subject matter of the study, like Vaush said, with like the hat or whatever, right? He basically, it is just the bit of this study doesn't agree with me, so I'm going to discredit it in any conceivable way that I can. Nice.
Not controlled within the experiment itself.
Well, no, it's actually an extremely well-respected and well-cited piece of research that's used in criminal justice studies, criminology, and sociology. Do you have any evidence that there is a counterfactual that would negate the validity of this study? Because you can't just say, "Oh, here's a confounding variable they might have missed," without A, proving they missed it, and B, proving it matters.
Yeah.
Because in theory, like the weapon you...
A lot of this is probably just going to be me agreeing with Vaush. Just like a lot of the Destiny versus JonTron debate it was me agreeing with Destiny. No, the same fucking room again. Ah. Oh wait, maybe it's not.
Should not affect sentencing. If you commit the crime, you commit the crime. Like, that's it.
Well, yeah, in theory it shouldn't, but you have to realize it's humans on the jury. Humans are going to let their emotions control their decision making.
Yeah, and that's bad. Again, this is the fucking... What is this? This is the is-ought confliction, where this guy's like, yeah, but that's the way it is. And the reason he says that is because that's the way he actually wants it to be. He likes that people's biases play into the jury selection because this guy is racist.
I need evidence to the claim. Do you have a study on that, or have you seen a study
do you really need evidence for human actions?
I see. So you saw the data and you didn't like it, so you imagined that there was a problem with the data.
Imagine. There's no imagination going into this.
Literally, you have evidence?
I presented you with a variable that they didn't control for.
How do you know?
And now you're saying
how do you know they didn't control for it, and how do you know it's relevant? There are tons of variables they didn't control for what hat.
In that study. Nowhere in that study does it say that the two crimes comparing between the white man and the black man had the exact same weapon used
They
within
said
the violent
same
crime.
crimes,
Nowhere.
and they describe what it means by same crimes. Do you have evidence that the weapon used meaningfully influences the conviction rate and the sentencing time for violent crimes? Additionally, do you
On the
have
same
proof
weapon
that it
talking
was not
point
accounted
again.
for in the study? And additionally, do you have proof that that conviction rate difference for weapon used would actually be in your favor? Because I have a feeling, and this could just be my personal bias, but if we're going to look at 2 degrees of murder one of them done by a firearm and one of them done by a knife, I have a feeling that the knife would actually be more heinous in general. Guns are a far more effective, utilitarian, quick, and painless way of ending a human life than any other weapon we have available. That's why the military gets them.
That's what that's what I pushed for in the original statement, was just the fact that obviously a jury is going to be much easier to convict.
You know, I actually don't know if I would have indulged that example of like actually if there was even a worse weapon, it would be a knife and not a gun. Because again, the core argument is that it doesn't matter whether you use a knife or a gun. You know, like murder 2 is murder 2, and like that's how the justice system works. And so like that doesn't, the weapon doesn't factor into the study of like why people got certain sentencing. The weapon used in a crime has no bearing on how heavy the sentence is.
Someone who chopped up a body than someone who's going to just shoot
Do you
one
think
bullet in the
black
head.
people like disproportionately chop up? I thought black people were the gun crime committers. That was my understanding. Wouldn't they be more likely to use the less heinous weapon?
This is a talking point that this used to be a more common talking point. I don't see it get brought up as much anymore. One of the few instances where conservatives don't like gun ownership.
Yes, they're going to be more likely to use I would say so. I don't know that for fact,
Well,
but
then
I
why
would
are they
say
getting
so on the
sentenced for
general
longer?
stereotype. I would probably, well, that's the thing though. There's no source that I've seen that actually comes down to the weapons, and that's why I'm saying that we actually need one that proves that before we can just jump to conclusions.
That's not how data works. You don't find a study that has a conclusion and then say, well, it didn't control for this variable, and then just ignore it. You would need to prove that the variable.
Have you actually written a study before? Have you actually done like a full experimental research and,
Yes.
and read a research paper on it?
Yes, I have a degree.
Okay, so the premise of doing an actual study at the end of it, or near the conclusion,
Everything
you're
you're
going
about
to
to say
write
is
the
going
things
to
that
be
you could
wrong.
further expound upon, or the things that could actually prevent your study from being correct, or the things that maybe you didn't account for. Those things are actually going to be what comes down to if that study should be considered all premier legitimate above all.
No.
And that's really what it's going to come down to.
That is
yes,
no.
Because if you're
Every
gonna,
single study will end with a statement on how this research could be expanded. That does not mean that we ignore the study that has been presented.
Okay, sure. I'm not saying that we ignore it. What I am saying though is it
you're
shouldn't
literally
be taken
saying
for
that.
full validity.
No,
I'm
it
saying
should.
that
No, that's how.
No, he had a
it
mushroom.
works.
God
In
damn.
Every single study.
Oh, no, wait, he
has a
didn't. He didn't.
statement.
He
Here's
just
how
okay.
we can add to this research. Here's what we can do more. Here are the limitations.
So you believe
wait. Every single study will say that. So, given that fact, we should probably, unless being given evidence to contradict the outcomes of a study, adopt the positions of well-cited, well-researched, peer-reviewed studies.
So any peer-reviewed study, you believe, even if you think it's staunchly wrong, if you look in that study and it's peer-reviewed and it looks valid, that it has to be right, because that's what you're coming down.
This is the anti-empiricism showing itself. This guy can't comprehend of a world where, like, fundamentally what this guy is arguing against is the concept of forming your beliefs based off of empirical evidence, which is subject to change over time. There are studies that have expanded upon previous studies in ways that have made certain studies, like, I don't know, a little bit out of date or whatever. But understand that what he's saying right now is that, like, oh, so studies have to, like, so if a study suggests something, then we should believe that the study is legitimate because it adhered to the scientific standards of a study. Yes, that is what that means, actually, because there's a distinct process of acquiring knowledge, and the scientific process exists and all that. This guy is basically balking at the concept that you wouldn't reject a study out of hand if it doesn't immediately agree with your viewpoint.
No.
God damn,
Wait,
nobody's
are you
online
like an
today.
Unironic anti-intellectual? You're literally
No,
arguing
I'm
like,
not,
well, the scientists say one thing, but do you just believe that when you think it's wrong? I don't give a fuck what you think, bro. The data uniformly agrees that black people are discriminated against in the criminal justice system. I really don't care, like, if that hurts your feelings or if that's inconvenient for you. This is plurality in criminology. Nobody...
Zen1 Tokyo, thank you for the follow. Glad to have new faces in the stream.
Disagrees with this. The argument's over, how do we address it? So for you to come here and attempt to rebuke the plurality of data by saying like, well, they didn't
welcome to
this
chat.
one thing which doesn't actually supposed to affect prison sentences, so let's throw it out. That's like pretty weak. You would need to have data. Here's USSC.gov's research on racial disparity in the criminal justice system, which acknowledges that there is currently no evidence to disprove the idea that black people are not discriminated or that are discriminated against. So
nice.
This is plurality. Even the government acknowledges it. It's just not argued against. Why are you so interested in ignoring the fact that racism exists?
Because he's racist.
There's no racism in this country.
Like I said at the beginning of this, you know, people who are very insistent on racism not existing to the extent that they will reject the concept of a scientific study as a metric of evidence for something existing or whatever. You know, they'll just be overtly anti-intellectual about it. The real position that people espouse there, or that people are trying to obfuscate and make seem legitimate, is that racism does exist, but actually it's fine and it's like it's good, it's justified.
No, I don't. Not once have I even hinted to that. What I do say is that the system itself is not racist.
Okay, because what is the system made up of?
Are you trying to imply that the system's made up of that? It's like a leading question.
Earlier you said the jury has biases which can lead to discrimination when it comes to the severity of a weapon sentence. You don't think that biases and racial prejudice can lead to juries having disproportionate prejudices against like black defendants?
Watch him refute this.
You acknowledge
Just gonna
bias.
Well, yeah, I did acknowledge that. And I'm not going to try to say that there's never going to be a racist white person that's going to get on a jury, you know? And if we can find some way to exclude them, I'm all for that. But you cannot say that that's the premise behind convictions. You cannot say that one...
Actually, it is. It is a significant part of the premise because juries decide whether somebody is guilty. And if there is a racist white person on a jury, or if there is in fact more than one, that's going to influence the like how the jury works and decides certain things, because those two people will be more likely to decide a black person is guilty than they would be to decide if like a white person is guilty. Juries are one part of systemic racism in a system where there are multiple elements of racism. It's just one part of that. But it is a part where that happens. And earlier this guy said, well, that's just human nature, basically, to have bias, and like you're never going to get an unbiased jury. The reason he says that is because he's okay with that, and not because he wants to address it.
That one alone thing means the entire system is racist.
Never
the
said it was
system's
that one alone
racist.
thing. It's everything. It's the plurality of data available in the subject. It's the fact that judges are far more likely to give sentences or convictions with mandatory minimum sentences to black people than they are to white people. 75% more likely for the same crime, of course. Sorry, I don't know if they account for weapons in whether or not the judge, mind you, not the jury, the legal professional, assigns a conviction with a mandatory minimum over a regular conviction. It's the jury. It's the fact that police have been...
Can I join CTWW, right? Yeah, feel free. Absolutely.
...proven to have a racial bias. Like, it's across the board. I mean, just nobody disagrees with this. There are like Ben Shapiro types who try to pretend this isn't the case because delegitimizing the concerns of black people and other people of color is like fun for them, I guess, or like it serves the interests of their billionaire benefactors. But it's just not...
Seems like there's not many people online right now.
It's just not contended with, I guess. I don't know. What I'm interested in most is you. Like, why do you think that racism isn't an issue? Like,
Well, I would like to respond. There's like
Huh?
a lot of points you've made.
Yeah, go
so
for
I'd
it,
like
sorry.
to try to respond here to at least some of them because obviously there's so much I can't cover it all. But here's the premise. Here's the premise of the way I have my stance. I'm not like a Ben Shapiro thumper. I'm not like a Steven Crowder worshiper. But what I am interested in is actually doing the research on how we came to.
Oh my god, he actually did the do your own research thing. 1v3, you predicted this. This guy straight up came in here to say systemic racism isn't real, but actually, like, he said systemic racism isn't real. I have data to prove it. Actually, systemic racism is real, and it's a culture thing, and black culture is just worse than white culture. And then he said, actually, the data is illegitimate. And now he's saying, I do my own research for this. Like, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Be in this situation.
What's that meme with Homelander where he's like, it was perfect. Everything, down to the last minute detail. Absolutely perfect. It's that meme.
And I am
That's
also,
me right now.
Part of the premise that it's innocent until proven guilty on the system itself. So we can't just claim that the system is
fucking dumb.
guilty of systemic
right.
racism without looking at actual
been proven
history
guilty.
and deciding.
Ooh.
I know you keep on saying
Like
that it's been
this
proven
segment.
guilty because
Federal
you have the sources.
investigations into police departments. The FBI has said that white supremacists have infiltrated the police. They've been saying that for over a decade. Every single criminological study on the processing of the criminal justice system has turned out I literally just gave you a government link saying no evidence has been provided to indicate black people are not discriminated against in the criminal justice system. It's been proven.
Okay.
Also, a big indicator that this guy just is very racist and is trying to obfuscate or whatever is that not only is there not only is there a distinct lack of evidence for any of the points that this guy's trying to make about oh, racism isn't real or whatever. But there are government studies that have been conducted, very high-level studies, data from the FBI that have, been done into this, that have said, the exact opposite. And not only concluded that, yeah, there's racism in these police forces and whatever, but have said, look, we've looked many times, and thus far, nobody has found any evidence. There is actually zero evidence that exists in favor of the point that systemic racism isn't real. And there is a preponderance of evidence, there's a lot of evidence to say it is real. So not only is there no evidence that this conservative guy's point is true, there is active evidence that this guy's point is false. But he doesn't really care for that evidence one way or the other. Because, like I said, he's an anti-empiricist. He doesn't actually, he's not actually interested in evidence as a concept, unless he can abuse it to affirm his priors, which are not formed by some sort of empirical standard of observation.
And I'm not one here that's going to sit and say, oh, well, it's impossible for a white supremacist or racist to become a police officer or get elected as some kind of official.
Why are you pivoting? I'm not saying individuals. I'm saying the system is racist. I mean, again.
I'm playing terribly right now. It's fine. I was playing really bad earlier. We might be in the same boat.
I know you literally just gave the example of white supremacists and police.
Besides, you're on Flame Runner, I'm on Mockbike. A lot of custom tracks favor Mockbike.
I'm not pivoting. I'm going off of exactly what you just said.
Do you think the FBI would make a report warning about white supremacists infiltrating the police if they were saying one person in the police is a white supremacist? Or do you think they would make that claim if there was a more systemic, widespread problem? Do you think it might be a little disingenuous?
They would make that claim if it was anything above 5.
So you think if there were 6 racists in the police, of the 700,000 police officers in the United States.
Because the claim that you made is not just racist. You said white supremacists. So the claim that's
racist
the claim,
white
right?
people tend to be white supremacists. What do you think they are? Black supremacists?
I would not claim that.
Also, it's also interesting to note that for this guy, racism does not necessarily mean white supremacy, when that is literally what it means. Racism is the idea that black people, at least in America, I know in Europe, the conceptions of racism can actually be quite different because like the racial divides in Europe are not the same as the racial politics of the United States. But in America, like if somebody is racist, that by definition means they are also a white supremacist or hold some sort of white supremacist beliefs, because the racial politic in the United States primarily concerns black people and white people. That has historically been the divide there, the thing. So yeah. Almost.
Because I mean, a lot of elderly people are
Shit.
racist because of the time that they lived in. They're not necessarily white supremacists.
Wait, yeah, they are.
Yeah, that's literally that's what that means.
White supremacists, yeah. Like, what do you think they're like? Fuck whiteys. I love Hispanic people. Is that like the average Fox News viewer? Like,
very true. I've always said this.
Pretty racist against non-white people. They're white supremacists.
No, I wouldn't consider that white supremacist. I would consider a white supremacist someone who's like prejudiced against all races other than white.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what being racist is.
Average Fox News viewer, yeah.
No, no, the average Fox News viewer is not someone who's prejudiced against anyone who's not white.
Oh no, yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Every Republican and most Democrats are probably some variant of white supremacists, but your side has it way worse.
Yeah.
Pretty collective.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see where you would say that from a radical standpoint, but you're totally misguided.
Got him. Nah.
Just because.
Lol.
Like average Fox News viewer is prejudiced against, I mean, this is totally off the point anyways, getting on this point of, white supremacists.
No,
but,
it's on point because you don't think racism is really like a thing. Do you think it's like a very magical thing? There are some like super extra evil people that are racist, but most people are genuinely good. It's not really how it works. Back during the days when we were a slave state, the average person in the South was a good old-fashioned, God-loving, Bible-thumping, farm boy who also believed blacks were animals that need to be kept in chains. Racism and being an active member of society are not mutually exclusive. And while today things may have gotten better, the fact remains that, in all likelihood, the majority of the people who participate in our political system carry some pretty severe racial biases. I come from the radical position of not being a racist. That's the position that I hold.
Based on radical politics.
I understand your radical left, and you have these presuppositions about society. However, that's not really the case when it really comes down to, the average elderly person who grew up, civil rights, grew up through all that and everything. I would say the average white, racist person would have a bias against black people, but it's not exclusive. I think it's probably more exclusive to black people. It's not like it's.
That's called racism and also white supremacy.
Covers
Vaush
all races.
doing the face.
The Republican Party, known lovers of Hispanics.
I wouldn't say it's that. I would say that.
Back when
Hispanics, are you really gonna try to make that judgment based off of what?
Is that a joke?
What?
I mean, we can talk about the fear-mongering done
No,
against,
I'm being dead serious. I mean, I know you're probably gonna lean into, Trump wall, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. 100%. Preempting the argument doesn't make it any less valid. Yeah, 100%. Trump comes up fear-mongering about rapists and murderers coming over the border, deploys them.
You know what's funny is, despite the fact that this prejudice exists, the vanguard of white supremacy is Hispanic people. Now, half the fucking white supremacists in Patriot Front and whatever other radical group in America are Hispanic, which is incredibly funny. But at the same time, this guy is waffling, like I said, because he is racist, but he also understands that the label of racist is bad. You don't want to be associated with being racist, so.
Military because of refugees coming up from the South that never even fucking made it to our country. Talks about shithole countries, builds or continues to man and then bolsters.
Was this back in 2019?
We have on the border.
Why does it say 3 years ago? It's 2024.
Also, Mexican, they are by definition concentration camps and have been acknowledged to be so by the Holocaust, historical society. Like, yeah.
Do you think? Do you on it? Do you genuinely?
Holocaust
think
denial
a
incoming?
person who was in the Holocaust would compare it to that?
Yeah, yes, and they did. Yeah, so yes, comma, and they did. Yeah, 100%. Was it as bad as Auschwitz-Birkenau? No, of course not. But they're both concentration camps.
Well, I guess if they made that definition, then it would, obviously be more, credible than my definition of it. But yeah, no, I would never compare it to the level of any kind of Auschwitz or even near that, honestly. We're not killing people, we're not torturing people.
Actually,
we're holding them in cages with TVs and hand sanitizer.
Holding 3 human beings.
Oh my god, it's literally just the you claim to be poor yet you have a fridge argument. Yeah, they're in cages. They're being imprisoned. So fucking what if they have a TV or whatever? The living conditions there are fucking horrible. They don't get like food consistently. They don't have good shelter. They don't have they get cold at night and shit like that. They have to sleep on the floor, whatever. Like I've seen some of the conditions in the camps this guy's talking about. The reason he's deflecting so much and saying, "Oh, it's not that bad," is because his real position is actually it is that bad. And I like that it's that bad. Is it as bad as Auschwitz? No. But, that doesn't mean it's not really, really bad. This guy's argument, essentially, they're talking about the treatment of immigrants right now. His argument essentially boils down to, oh, well, we're not literally, putting them in death camps and gassing them and working them to death. So, obviously, that, there's no racism there. It's a very, conservatives will go to very weird lengths to justify racism and racist policymaking. Couldn't be me, personally. Being racist is pretty fucking weird.
In cold desert environments with minimal protection, meets the UN definition of unfair treatment of civilians. It meets the definition of torture. Additionally, right now they're using some kind of viral gassing agent in the camps. They're literally gassing people right now, and it's causing respiratory issues for the people there.
I did hear about that. The respiratory.
I did not know about this, but this was 3 years ago, so it'd probably be long out of the news cycle. Either way, not good.
I heard something about the agent that they were using. If that's true, because I haven't looked into it yet. If that's true, I totally.
If that's true.
Totally condemn that, and that's horrible. I'm not gonna stand up and say that was a.
If that's true. This is the same language used by people who deny genocides, either ongoing or past. People who deny the Holodomor sometimes, well, a lot of times they'll just be open and say that, oh, this didn't happen. Yeah, Uyghurs, just want to give them some screen time. Yeah, in fact, a lot of people who deny the Uyghur genocide say if. They have to obfuscate, again, because they understand that being in favor of the things happening looks really fucking bad. So they have to play dumb and sort of obfuscate and try to say, well, I don't know that that's happening. But if it is, it's bad. Without ever conceding that it is happening.
It's okay.
You're okay with people being held in cages in freezing desert climates with little electric blankets they can toss over them and their 4 kids for no reason?
No, I'm fucking dead.
Met the legal requirements for coming up to the border to declare asylum.
I'm okay with any person who doesn't want to follow our law. Yeah.
Wait, they followed the law. You have to enter the country before you can declare asylum.
Yeah, but you realize that these people aren't even trying.
Yeah,
these people aren't even trying to become a citizen.
Wait, they can't. Wait, how can they be?
How
can they be trying? Wait. How can they be trying if they're arrested at the border? What the fuck does that mean? They literally followed the legal UN certified process.
If they're being arrested at the border, then there's obviously other implications that go into that.
No, there isn't. They were just arrested for coming over the border.
We're not just arresting Hispanics for just coming across the border.
Yes, we are. We literally do that. In fact, that's been the standard practice for more than 30 years at this point. Ever since the 1990s, people who immigrate to the United States are just arrested as soon as they reach the border. A lot of times they don't even get due process, which is pretty fucked up.
Yes, we are. You realize the UN has condemned the United States for not abiding by the process by which we allow asylum. Wait, are you just ignorant? You should read up on this. That's literally what's happening. They're literally just rounding people up during the crossing and putting them in camps, even though they have a legal right to do that. The asylum process requires that you enter the borders of the country that you wish to declare asylum in. Many of them came over legally with permits and have had those permits stolen by the state, never to see them again. Many of them have been separated by their children. All of these meet definitions of the UN of unhumane treatment of like civilian population. Like this is just a fact. This isn't like a lefty bias thing. This is just what's happening. You wouldn't get this if you watched Fox News though, which is why I'm not surprised that their viewers are so okay with what's going on down there. They just see like the AOC went down and cried the defense like on loop for 24 hours a day. Wait, you're laughing, but you're like defending the inhumane treatment of people who are legally following the guidelines to declare asylum.
I'm defending the law that you find unjust.
Wait, it's not a law. Again, the U.S. is breaking international law by doing this. There's no law. That
average law and order.
Wait, why are you laughing? Wait,
individual.
Do you think it's funny to be like a fascist?
I think it's funny. I think it's funny that your radical biases are
what radical bias
hindering you from seeing reality.
Wait, what bias? What have I said that is factually untrue? Is that what you say when you realize that you don't have?
This is the point in the debate where the guy probably just starts waffling, but I don't know. I think there's if we assume that like this is more or less where the debate ends, I can say right now that like there was some value in seeing this debate. I think because like a lot of conservatives will act somewhat like this guy did. Maybe not exactly, but like on most issues, a lot of conservatives nowadays in the U.S. particularly, I can't speak so much to other countries, will act the way this guy's acting, in that they will disingenuously front a certain belief only to shift the goalpost continually to try to avoid like talking directly about the thing that they actually believe or the real subject of discussion, which is just fundamentally that they're evil and enjoy the concept of human suffering, especially when said humans are already marginalized in a system of like inequality and whatever. You know, basically with every issue, this guy has said, no, racism doesn't exist. But when you peel back the layers, as Vaush did by asking certain clarifying questions, by talking about certain data, not data points, but like studies that contain certain data points and make an argument based on their findings, like each layer that gets peeled back, he runs to something else. This guy, Conservativehypehouse, until it's revealed, oh, this guy just likes bad things, basically.
Have any arguments to contend with mine?
No, I'm not trying to pivot from, you know, me not being able to defend my point. What I am saying is that you're holding the UN to a higher standard than the United States government.
No, I'm not. I'm just holding everyone to the same international standards of treatment of asylum takers that the US agreed to follow. They said they would follow these rules, and they don't.
But as a nation, we don't have to. We can say we want to, and then not.
Wait,
do
so
it.
you're okay with the U.S. breaking international law to incarcerate,
Classic.
put in concentration camps asylum seekers? You're just you backed off the law argument, and now we're just on fuck them. Like that's the new argument.
Well, if
least insane yeah, there we go. That's the argument.
I backed up the law, and you're saying, well, they're going against the law.
With what? Wait, what law? What law allows them to do that? What law allows them to do that?
I'm not saying, literally, you're putting words in my mouth right now. I never said that the law allows them to do to take the asylum seekers straight off the border into prison.
Yeah,
I never said the law allows that. No, I said the law doesn't allow people who are not trying to get citizenship, nor are asylum seekers. We don't allow that. That's law.
What are you
we
talking
don't allow
about?
That.
We're talking about asylum seekers on the border. You initially said, well, if they're breaking the law by coming over, but they're not breaking the law by coming over. And now you're saying you're okay with breaking international law.
I'm fine with...
I can't believe I predicted... Well, I can believe. It's kind of funny that I predicted like 2 seconds before this guy ended up going full Joker mode. That it, like, you know, I didn't expect him to so readily back off the law argument. Or even, I guess, to make the law argument in the first place. Conservatives don't care about international law very much, especially because the main topic of discussion right now is Israel and Gaza. And most conservatives know that what Israel's doing is illegal in terms of international law. They just don't really care. And they prefer to frame things in terms of, like, biblical justifications. Because like, I don't know. If you there are some things in the Bible that you could much more easily use to make the argument that, like, oh, fucking the Jews need to occupy the Holy Land or whatever in order for the rapture to happen. I think that's one of the beliefs that Christians have. But either way, like, this is just one more argument that this guy doesn't really care about. Again, because his real position is just, yeah, fuck them.
It's breaking international law if the asylum seekers are not legitimate.
What does that mean?
Because anybody can claim asylum and not actually need it.
Yeah, and so then they get entered into the process and denied if that's what the U.S. wants to do. You don't put them in concentration camps.
So we hold them until the process is finished.
No, not in concentration camps. And these people haven't been admitted into the process. They're just being kept in camps. This is not part of determining whether or not they're being admitted for asylum.
Well, if they're actually, which, you know what?
How do you determine
I'm not
that?
sure what kind of.
Oh, I know. You're very eager
what?
to justify them being kept in camps, but there is no legal or moral justification for this.
You know, I'm genuinely impressed that this guy hasn't owned up to the fact that his politics are just the politics of suffering. Time to go to sleep out here. Have fun with the rest of this debate. Have a good sleep. See you next time, whenever that is. See ya. I'm impressed that this conservative guy has gone this long without actually just saying, yeah, actually, fuck them, they're degenerates and stuff like that. It's crazy how much has changed in just, like, 4 or 5 years. 4 years, almost. This was in 2020. You know, because I think if you were talking to a conservative nowadays, they would much more openly say, just like, yeah, fuck migrants. I don't care what the international law says. Yeah.
It's just bad.
There's moral justification if there is moral justification if these people don't have a reason to claim asylum.
What do you
because
mean?
asylum
Wait,
is just the easy way.
Then just deny them
asylum is just
asylum.
the easy way of saying.
Then just deny.
See, look, he's taking issue with it being the easy way. Everything has to be suffering for these people.
But we aren't allowed to keep them in camps.
I'm not a proponent of us keeping them here. I prefer them to just be sent back.
That's not a part of the legal process. Wait, you want to send asylum seekers back?
If they're not legitimate.
Yes.
If they're not legitimate.
Wait. Hold on, really quickly, because I can tell you're jumping all over the place right now, okay? So here's the process. Asylum seekers come to our country, enter our border, and declare themselves asylum seekers at the nearest legitimate legal institution. There are plenty of institutions they're allowed to do this at. Then, the United States, historically, gives them temporary visas while their credentials are assessed by the US government. And then, they're either approved or
I went for it all.
Not many are approved. We're pretty stringent in this country. The rest of them are, I mean, they go back. It's not great, but they go back. And a few of them are allowed to stay. What is happening right now is everyone who is at the border, even some of whom have visas, are being put into concentration camps which violate UN humane treatment of civilian guidelines, are not being admitted into the process, so we can't even verify whether or not their claims for asylum should or should not be accepted. So we have deviated from the process in every conceivable way.
Do you or do you not believe that these people have other implications that are causing them to get, put in what you would identify as concentration
camps? That's not a... Wait, what do you mean?
Okay.
Do you genuinely believe that the vast majority of these asylum seekers who are being put in the holding places, then do you actually think that these people don't have any other reason?
What do you mean, any other reason? What does that mean? Every asylum seeker has many reasons why they want to travel. Every one. Mexican.
So again, his argument, his position continually shifts because his argument is just, nah, they don't deserve it. Fuck them. Oh, you're so sure that all these asylum seekers are legitimate. Who cares if they are? He's so fixated on the concept of, people abusing the system because he disagrees with the system that helps people. Honestly, it's kind of wild that he's still putting up the dog and pony show here.
About traveling. I'm talking about them actually being put in what you would consider the concentration camps or the holding places. Okay, so if you want to call it that, that's fine. You have every right to. But
It's,
if
I mean,
if
you can
actually
use like your snowflake like false definition if you want, but the actual the people who determine these things have determined it. Historians, sociologists. If the Holocaust like advocates are the ones like agreeing.
yeah, but
that
on a general basis, no one calls it a concentration camp
no
other
no
than
no
you
wait
and
sorry
maybe
wait
the
no no
radicals.
no wait hold on. Republicans don't. Academics
true.
do, and people on the left do. But the academics are typically the ones who get to decide whether or not a camp meets the historical and political characteristics of a concentration camp. It's not something politicians come up with. We usually defer to academia to come up with these definitions. Academia is very left-leaning. I wonder why. Anyway, concentration camp, go.
Okay, so
Okay, it looks like there's a few more moments in this.
just to avoid anything you just said, because I know that bring us on a different topic. Basically, what I'm trying to say is,
Random.
as
Yeah.
far as immigration goes, if a person or family comes to the border, wants to claim asylum, right, and you're claiming that some of these asylum seekers are not even allowed to, get in the acceptance.
All right. Here's what's up. I'm just gonna deliver the argument that's going on here. This guy's arguing people from Central America, South America, whatever, don't deserve to come to this country. He can clothe it in the whole language of like, oh, it's against the law and the process and whatever, all he wants. Fundamentally, that's just his position, right? And the correct position is that people should be allowed to travel and live wherever they would like to in terms of like, this town, this country, whatever, right? Because there's no harm in that. Like, it's an issue of freedom of movement, which is one of the key like freedoms that people should have. It's like I'm not sure if it's like very consistently classified as a form of free speech. But free movement is definitely up there. I think like if you don't have free movement, it sort of starts to feel like you're in a prison of some sort, and nobody likes that. I mean, I don't want to make any feels arguments. Ultimately, just philosophically speaking, it's good when people have freedom, and that freedom includes the freedom to move where you will. And right now, people are exercising that freedom not necessarily out of want, but out of need, because they're escaping a dire situation. And this guy's position is fuck them, ultimately. So we don't really need to dwell on this. It's just sometimes it actually gets a little bit boring when conservatives say the same shit over and over again, and acting like they've done something significant to sort of obfuscate their real position, which is just that they like human misery, particularly of like
acceptance route,
people they would
right?
deem to be
You're
lesser
saying that?
humans.
Yes, or pretty much like none of them are. Like they're just being kept in camps or being turned away again.
Okay. So if they're coming there and they're not even allowed, they're just already locked up before they've even had the chance to go, which I still believe is the vast minority until I see something that proves me differently.
What do you think? Wait. What do you think the majority of the?
By the way, he wouldn't believe it even if there was something to prove it. He says until there's something to prove me differently, but he's gonna adjust the standard of proof such that there's nothing that you could present him that would convince him. Because, like I said, this guy doesn't actually care about evidence.
People in the camps are like, how do you think they got there?
I think the majority of the people in the camps are either people who were trying to cross the border illegally, or B, they're people who had other reasoning to be locked up. Like either charges, drugs, illegal items.
And here we get another small constituent part of like a conservative and sometimes even liberal worldview, which is that if somebody is in this state of misery, they fundamentally they deserve to be there. There are not very many liberals that believe this, not at least so upfront. It's more common among conservatives, but like it's a very pro status quo and pro hierarchy belief that if you have good things in your life, then you definitionally you deserve those good things because you have them. But if bad things have befallen you in your life, then that means you deserve those bad things because they befell you. If that makes sense. So his logic is essentially the migrants that are in concentration camps deserve to be in those camps because they're in those camps. So they must have deserved it. It's the logic of victim blaming. If you were to talk to this guy about rape culture and feminism, he would argue that that people who were raped deserve to be raped. Maybe not in so many words, but that would be what you get from this guy.
Like
Sure.
maybe weapons and
So let's
such?
go over this really quickly. So first of all, no, the concentration camps are not being used as a prison. So your second point is factually incorrect. They are not just being like, oh, you've been caught with a criminal offense, we're throwing you in there. That's just not the case. Second of all, how can you tell the difference between people just trying to cross illegally and people who are declaring asylum if you don't let the people declare asylum?
Because he doesn't actually care. There we go.
Because I think the country has every right to decide if someone's seeking for asylum is actually worthy of getting that chance
Yes,
chance to claim asylum.
Wait, you think the country should decide whether or not a person even gets to declare asylum? How does the country decide who's an illegal immigrant and who's an asylum seeker?
Because basically the way I would judge that is if someone's coming across the border and you've sat them down, you talk to them or whatever, you talk to them when they're across the border, I don't know, however they would go about that, because I'm no border official.
That is not what happens at the border right now.
No, well, I realize that's not what happens at the border in most regards, but obviously they sit down and talk to these people before they throw them in a cage. So
wait, what do you
anyways.
mean by
No,
talk to
they
these
don't.
people? Like, are these children yours? Do you have a weapon? What do you mean? Do you think these people are being asked, like, what are your intentions for entering the United States? Do you have any family, or what interview do you think they're being given? Do you think they get like a cup of...
I guarantee, however, migrants at the border are treated really, really badly. There is very little talking that goes on. In fact, there are instances where you don't even get arrested; they just shoot at you. I don't know how much this has been the case with Latin American migrants, but there have been Haitian migrants who have been shot at by American Border Patrol as they're attempting to enter the United States. In the 1990s, they called them boat people as like a dehumanizing thing. But there is no part where they sit you down and talk to you, because this guy is creating that out of thin air because he needs a mechanism to justify the imprisonment and internment of migrants in concentration camps. Because he recognizes that a lot of the bad things he supports are still bad, even if he supports them. And he's not quite ready to drop the mask and just be like, fuck it, I'm actually Hitler.
Of coffee too?
It's not like an interview. What it is these people have to give their claims. We don't have to ask them anything.
No, they do. Yeah, they tried to declare asylum. They're supposed to do that at a legal center, like a townhouse or a police station or something like that.
Exactly. And you're claiming that these people are thrown in cages before they even had the amount of time to go there and do that.
Yeah.
Because that should be the first thing that you're doing when you're crossing the border.
Yes.
Yes.
Really wanting to say.
Yes, but you can't get there if...
So here's the thing, right? Because there's some people that a lot of conservatives are like, oh, you're saying they're arrested before they even get to the port of entry or whatever. Yes, actually, there are certain points along the United States border that are designated as ports of entry. There are border guards there that arrest people before they even enter the port of entry so that they can properly declare asylum. That's what happens. That the first thing that happens when people get to the United States is the border guard arrests them. Yeah. But again, this guy wants a justifying mechanism or whatever.
The cops get to you first. They capture you and they put you in the camps. They are not being given time to declare asylum as per the legal international guidelines of asylum seeking.
And so I would love to see the numbers on this, because I would love to see how many people are legitimately...
What do you mean?
So so he doesn't believe it. if you showed him the numbers on this, if you showed him like, yeah, this is what we do, this is the standard policy for the United States, and it's in violation of international law, he wouldn't believe it because he doesn't believe in the concept of data and empirics.
Running into this. I'm talking about you're giving a hypothetical right now, is what it is. You're giving a hypothetical here.
I'm just telling you what's happening. What do you mean legitimate?
No, I've been disconnected.
I'm talking about an actual number of people that this is happening to. Legitimate number. Legitimate.
What do you mean? Like how many people are in the
there we go. There's the goalpost shift.
How many people that this...
Show me some statistics, but actually show me legitimate statistics. See, the reason he says that is because then if you find like, yeah, here's some data of like a lot of migrants get just fucking arrested at the border. In fact, most of them do. He would say, aha, but these aren't legitimate statistics. You should find me legitimate statistics as opposed to illegitimate ones.
This is happening to. How many people are not even able to claim asylum?
Wait. What specifically are you asking? How many people are in the concentration camps?
No. Listen, just listen. I'm asking how many people are put into cages before they get to claim asylum?
Well, that would be all of them, because if they were able to claim asylum, they wouldn't be in concentration camps.
Yes.
No, they're not all there because they just got claimed up or locked up before they even had to claim asylum. They're not all
that is why they're there actually.
If they claimed asylum, they wouldn't be in a concentration camp, because after you claim asylum, you're given a temporary visa while the state decides whether or not they want to keep you.
Are you assuming that all these people crossing the border are claiming asylum?
We don't know. We're not letting them declare asylum. We don't have a way of knowing because we catch them before they can follow the legal procedure.
I'm actually going to leave it there. I've streamed for about 3 hours. I might make that this debate review into a segment, but either way, I will have to finish next time. So it has been fun. Thanks all for turning out for this. Let's open this up. Okay. Oh, hey, it still shows. Nice. Let's go... Where was I? I was about here. So. Last we left off on this debate review, this conservative guy had been shifting the goalposts and all that. You guys will see on the YouTube video, because that's all going to be one video. I guess at this point, I'm just interested in seeing how far the mask slips. But we've already established that this guy and many conservatives that believe the same thing, or actually any conservative that believes the same thing that Conservativehypehouse does, their politics are just the politics of suffering, and they hate good things. They like bad things, especially when those bad things happen to minorities. Anyways, let's continue.
Or they can follow the legal procedure. How are you not getting this? They don't get the chance. We don't get to know.
You're making this you're making the statement that they don't have the chance, but that's not how it all goes down.
Yes, it is, because if they had declared asylum, they would have been given a temporary visa. They aren't being given
exactly. That statement right there, that statement you made right there was perfect.
Yes,
they actually
but they're in the camps. They haven't been allowed to make it to a town where they can declare asylum status.
Listen, you're making the assumption.
That's a little example of this guy doing the is-ought conflation, or I guess the just world fallacy is another name for it, where Vaush said, like, yeah, if you declare asylum, you can get a temporary visa, but they're not letting these people declare asylum. And this guy is using that, but in reverse. Oh, if they don't have a temporary visa, it means they didn't declare asylum. And he's neglecting or he's somehow neglecting the part where they aren't being allowed to declare that asylum so they can get the temporary visa in the first place. He's working backwards from the conclusion, again, that it is perfectly justified that migrants be in these concentration camps. What the...
assumption that every single one of these people were straightway going to an establishment to go claim asylum.
These people aren't being taken. No, the
correct.
people at the concentration camps are not being just taken from, like, for the most part, from American cities. Sometimes ICE, like, pulls people from cities, but for the most part, these are people caught at the border. They're caught at the border. Not north of the border, where they're after they attempt to declare asylum, before the border, at the border. That is where they're caught.
Shit.
They don't get a chance. The border is very big.
Why do you think they're being caught? Why do you think? Do you genuinely think that they're just perfectly clean people, nothing wrong with them at all?
Whoa! What happened to innocent until proven guilty, my dude? You're just like, people are having UN guidelines violated, and you're like, well, they must be criminals. Whoa!
Yeah, there we go.
That's innocent until proven guilty, you little shit.
That's every single argument this guy makes is like, well, actually, they must have deserved it. Because, you know, bad things happened to them, so they must have deserved the bad things that happened to them. Like I said, there are some liberals that do this as well, but it's mostly conservatives. And in fact, when liberals do this, it's a lot less, like, insidious. Where, like, conservatives will be a lot more flagrantly dishonest with the sort of, well, they must have deserved it trope because they just like suffering. Whereas liberals, it comes from more of a, like, place of denial where they genuinely don't want to believe that, like, there are really bad things happening in the world and that the world is a severely flawed place. But ultimately they are willing to acknowledge, because they like good things and don't like bad things. But yeah, again, you know, nothing I haven't really said before, of course. Ow.
How about we let them know we're not? No, we're not. If you're like, well, they have to be put in concentration camps. Do you really think none of them are criminals? I don't know. How about we follow the asylum guidelines to decide? Also,
yeah, I think it is pretty critical to point out that this guy is justifying the internment in concentration camps of all migrants because, I don't know, some of them must be criminals, so just fucking put them all in there. That's collective punishment, which is a war crime. But again, this guy doesn't care. Like, he doesn't actually believe that any of them are criminals by virtue of anything that they've done, right? He is using the word criminal the way a Nazi would use the word degenerate, because this guy probably is aligned pretty closely with Nazis in his beliefs. Simply by virtue of being brown and being from a Latin American country, that makes them criminals to him.
Decide whether or not they should be kept in the country.
Or how about we get to them and find out? How about that?
We can't until they declare. Wait, people at the cages have declared asylum. What has happened to them?
I'm guessing on your, basis that they're still there.
Yeah. You think that these people are just at the concentration camps and they could just go like, I declare asylum, they've been let go? No, there are people there who want to declare asylum, who were locked up before they reach the place they are legally required to declare asylum at. You clearly don't know anything about the asylum-seeking process or the laws that the United States is violating, but you're very, very keen to assume criminality of the people who are following a legal procedure the U.S. has respected for a century. Because
I'm not here to condone anybody getting locked up without them doing anything wrong.
You clearly are, but that's
no. He is.
Yes,
he
are.
is.
You can't say like, well, they.
No,
you really.
Wait.
I need you.
Again, this is the.
You can't say, well, do you really think none of these people are criminals? And not condone them being locked up. You're looking for justifications to lock them up, even though you know nothing about these camps.
Yeah, there we go.
You don't know the demographics of these camps. You don't know the asylum-seeking process. You don't know whether or not asylum seekers are let go after declaring the asylum-seeking process. You don't know anything about the conditions by which these people are being treated, and you don't know the proportions of the people there that declared asylum. You don't know anything, but you are desperate. You are grasping at straws to find any justification. Trump put them in camps. There must be a good reason. They must be criminals. They must have been caught raping a white woman in El Paso. I'm really sorry to say, my dude, this is just the U.S. violating international law for no good reason. And if you actually believe in innocent until proven guilty, you would have those people let go so they could declare asylum at police stations and follow the legal process that the United States of America not only promised to uphold, but helped draft as a part of the UN Council, that we are now ignoring for no good reason. Illegal immigration is down. They do no harm to our economy. They do less crime than the average person in this country. They contribute economically to this country. There is absolutely no justification legally, civically, morally for these people being kept out. But there is an excellent justification if you're a racist, and it's that you don't want brown people in the country.
Man, that was quite a mouthful for you to come down to the general talking point of you're a racist.
Yeah,
so,
it was pretty easy. You made it really easy to arrive at that conclusion. Do you not want to be a racist?
I'm sure.
It is very easy to arrive at the conclusion if somebody's racist if they are behaving like a racist, walking like a racist, quacking like a racist, and looking like a racist. You know, the looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. That means it's a duck. Yeah.
I'm sure when you deny
what?
the actual, you're denying the fact that the government is actually trying to stop bad people. That's
You've
what you
denied
deny.
it. Wait,
That's
wait,
what it really,
by violating UN international law. By violating UN international law and not doing anything to actually separate like the criminals from the non-criminals at the camps. They're not doing anything. Are all Mexicans bad people to you? That's kind of racist, my dude, because they're just keeping everyone from the border. They're not just like finding criminals.
What's one?
Wait,
Let's
who's
go.
the bad people? Wait, who's the bad people? Because they aren't actually determining criminality at these camps. They're not determining criminality. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? They're locking everyone up. Why do you hate the Constitution, my dude? I'm a constitutional
Let him cook.
specialist.
Yeah, true. Let him cook. I actually really like the line, "Why do you hate the Constitution?" Because, you know, even though it's a very lib argument to like argue from constitutionality and whatever in some contexts, I think in this context it's fitting because a lot of conservatives will call themselves constitutionalists and then argue for the most blatantly unconstitutional shit that you could even come up with.
Because, dude, because you hate America. What's wrong with you? You hate the international law we drafted. You hate the Constitution.
You're the one that's literally anarchist.
Because I love America, 100%. Hey, America was founded with a revolution against a tyrannical government, my dude, okay? I'm following in a long line. I'm following in the tradition of my forefathers, okay? You're over here like a simpering little fucking loyalist to King George.
Kinda true,
well, we're just trying to keep criminals out of the border, even though we have assumed criminality before determining their innocence. And we're just trying to keep bad people out, even though we're arresting all of them.
If we assumed criminality, we wouldn't put them in a cage that's nowhere near the bad lengths of an actual prison.
You know why? Because they haven't met the standard of mea culpa to actually get these people arrested or deported back to Mexico. So they just keep them in camps in a legal gray zone.
Yes, yes, with TVs and hand sanitizers and.
You claim to be poor, yet you have a fridge S argument. I've talked about this before.
And
yeah. Hand sanitizers and TVs, the things they have at prisons. Oh my God. That's
not
totally,
in your freaking jail
That's
cell.
totally an okay thing to subject people who are innocent, who are following the law to. Dude, have you ever considered, do you consider yourself a conservative? Have you considered fascism?
Ooh.
No,
I didn't know it was Vaush that
because I'm a true conservative who wants to keep the border safe. And
wait, how's this keeping the border safe by just arresting everyone without determining criminality or allowing them to follow the legal process?
Okay, hang on. Can I speak without you talking over me just for 1 second, please?
Sure, you just don't have much to say other than laughing. So, but yeah, you can go for it.
Well, I'm laughing at all the ridiculous points you're making.
But you don't have a counter argument. Fascinating. Ben Shapiro would be very disappointed.
Damn, true. Back when Ben Shapiro actually made arguments and did debates.
Not once.
He actually doesn't do them anymore.
Anybody getting thrown in a cage if they legitimately did not down to the. I mean, legitimately. I don't know how long it takes. Whenever
this is every time he talks about like, oh, yeah, it's probably bad for people to be put in cages. He has to qualify if they've done nothing wrong because, like, to him being a migrant is doing something wrong. That's the crime to him. Is the degeneracy, like I said. I'm gonna save this mushroom for the shortcut this time. Right here. Oh no.
Whenever you're crossing the border, you know how far a facility is away from wherever you cross the border from. I don't know that. But if they legitimately did not have at the minimum time. They did not have the minimum time.
Oh, I actually want to try a shortcut on this
straight
track.
from the border. And they legitimately are not criminals, not have done a thing wrong in
Bro, what?
in their
What is
previous
that?
life or now.
Wait, criminals ever? Wait, if a person like jaywalked back in
Wacky
fucking
shortcut.
1988, they can't come to the U.S.?
I'm not saying that they're in the U.S. when they're in the concentration camps.
Wait, so wait, they can never commit a crime ever?
I would consider any crime that you've committed in a previous country, I would consider that being able to have the ability of the U.S. to look back at that and decide, okay, do we want to keep that?
Oh, through an asylum
in our country.
process.
Well, through any process, asylum or not.
Well, no, the asylum process is how you do that, because
Ah,
that's when the feds look through your records. Like, the police can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. I know.
By
I know the
allowing
feds
them
have to look through the
to-
records in previous. Yeah, claim
Get
asylum.
fucked.
I know. I not once today. Now, okay, you cannot bring up one instance where I literally have said, yeah, that's okay if we lock them up without them even being able to be able to claim asylum.
wait, so... Okay, so
Not
let's...
once
I
did I
mean,
say that.
I understand...
Okay, so this is a thing that conservatives will frequently do, is like, when have I said X? When they haven't actually said it, but everything that they've said leads only to that conclusion, right? Like, when have I said it's perfectly fine to lock up every single person that comes to the border? He didn't outright say that at any point necessarily, but he clearly made it, he made it very clear that that is his belief, and anybody who is not, like it being unjustified to lock people up would be the exception rather than the rule. Like I said, he's like introducing the Weasley qualifications of if they haven't done anything wrong. He's presuming guilt, which means to him it is fine. Like that categorical statement. He just doesn't want to make that categorical statement because it looks really bad for him.
You're backpedaling, but I'll allow you to do it if you want, because I feel bad. So are you saying that if there are people in the concentration camps who are asylum seekers who have not been given a chance to legally declare asylum at a U.S. legal representative, after which they'll be given a temporary visa and their credentials will be asserted by the feds, i.e. the legal process, you would be in favor of that happening?
I would be in favor of them solely being allowed to claim asylum, and I believe that we should also expedite the process.
Sure, we can expedite the process, but in order for them to do that, they need to go to the camps.
But I also don't think that we should let kids out without their parents. I think that's also another thing.
Oh, I agree. So we should
if their
stop
parents aren't
separating the
with
kids
them.
from the parents.
Depending on what the parents or if they have criminal charges.
Here he goes with the qualifications again, because this guy is pro bad things. Like, legitimately, this guy just likes suffering. So he's like, well, no, I still want to separate kids from parents, but he knows he can't just say that, so he has to, like, introduce another qualification there.
Or if they
it's pretend nuance is what it is.
Or just not claiming asylum on their own accord. They didn't actually not have time.
Wait. If there's a person who comes up and they're an illegal immigrant, you think the state should separate them from their children?
The children didn't do anything wrong.
Wait. If they're caught as an illegal immigrant, they would be deported. Yes? Why not deport the kids with them?
Because generally speaking,
Whoa,
I believe
really
that
higher.
America's concentration camps would be a safer space for these kids. And like
that is insane to me. You think separating children from their
Okay.
parents and holding them with no adult supervision at a state-sanctioned concentration camp.
Okay. Do you think that the parents aren't going to come back?
If they're in a concentration camp, no, probably.
So now we're on the level of concentration camps are good, actually. Average conservative. So it seems that the mask is finally peeling off a little bit. Yeah.
Probably not.
But not
do you
completely.
think they can just return to the camp and go like, my baby, and like they'll give them their baby? What do you think happens here? The kids are separated, and those kids are fucked. They're wards of the state forever.
Well, that guy's way up there.
Well, and that's the thing my thing is, listen, I think you should be deported if you've done something wrong, right? That's
Wait,
I think
if
that's
you're-
pretty
if
much
you're
the
an
premise.
asylum seeker? Or
Again,
if
to
you're
him,
an
coming to the country
immigrant,
is doing
or-
something wrong. So he just wants to
People
deport
know
everybody.
what I mean by doing something wrong.
No,
doing
I
something
don't.
criminal.
But wait, like what? But wait, for which group? Asylum seekers or or illegal immigrants?
We're talking about the parents. I'm talking about the parents of that child. That we're on this discussion about
asylum.
the child.
Are they asylum seekers or illegal immigrants? The parent that we're talking about, have they declared asylum status?
Okay, the parents. Okay, the parents that we're talking about of this kid, if they have had plenty, or not plenty, if they've had any opportunity to claim asylum and they have not,
so illegal
or
immigrants.
they have past criminal. Basically, yes.
Okay, so illegal immigrants. Okay, what about these people?
If an illegal immigrant is here in
I've
America,
been racing so bad.
I think that it's fair to.
Oh my god, I'm racing so bad!
Without deporting the kids because the kids haven't done anything wrong. It's not of their own accord.
So you think the kids would be better off in a orphanage, leeching.
I was doing good for a little bit, and then I hit that wall and it was all downhill.
Who they've spent their entire lives with, who they love and cherish more than anything else.
Yep. The foster care system, I believe, needs super bad.
Why would you take them from your parents? Why? We don't do that for any other crime.
Because
this guy just wants an excuse to make migrants suffer. Ultimately, there's no good reason to separate kids from their parents, unless there is a very specific crime being committed against the kid, which this guy doesn't actually care about because, again, he, like, with the logic that he's used, he would defend child abuse because most of the logic that he's using here is just the logic of victim blaming, where, oh, you've been put in a concentration camp, so that means you deserve to be there. You could apply this to rape culture. You could apply this to Holocaust denial. You could apply this to a lot of things. But he's remarkably consistent in supporting policies that make people suffer.
Because personally, I believe that they're going to have a better life here than they would in Mexico, because that's the whole premise of them coming over here, right?
Yeah, with their parents as a family, not alone as wards of the state.
But truthfully speaking, would you feel better?
I don't know why I'm playing so bad today.
Say they're in a horrible condition, literally dying in Mexico. Let's say that. Would you prefer them to be sent back with their dying family in Mexico?
What do you mean
dying? Actually be able to have.
You mean like their family's in a gunfight, like at the moment, like they're being sent back?
Not a gunfight.
But I don't know what you mean.
Like,
Mexico's a dangerous country, but so are parts of the U.S. A lot of poorer parts of the U.S. are also really fucking dangerous. What do you mean?
Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But okay, listen. If they're coming from Mexico, it's because they find something better in America, right? They see something better in America that they want to achieve.
Uh-huh.
I apologize. I'm gonna have to go shortly after this, after we finish this point here. But basically, yes. Like that's the whole premise, right? Is if they're coming to America in hopes of something better.
Got him.
Then
with their family.
I wholeheartedly believe that it would be better to have the kids stay in America to still have better opportunities.
You can
than
ask
going back
the Mexican community that if you want. Nobody will agree with you. And I guarantee you, if you ask little Mexican babies in Mexico, would you rather live in Mexico with your parents or live in an orphanage in the U.S.? I know what they would answer.
Yeah, no.
Well, sure, yes, everybody's going to have the affinity to their parents. I don't want to be separated from my parents either, but I also know that,
but he really likes
truthfully
suffering,
speaking,
so
wouldn't those parents be more willing to give their kids a better life in Mexico? I mean, in America?
I don't know, because it'd be separating a family. That's one of the most important predictors of family health and of long-term well-being. And I promise you, the average outcomes for like a kid in an orphanage.
Look, for all of the shootings and stuff that happen in America is actually very, very safe. In fact, like you can check a lot of crime statistics and death statistics. Crime is at like a 30-year low in the United States, relatively speaking. Like the past couple of years, there was a spike during COVID, I believe, but then it like really, really calmed down and stuff. Obviously, the United States has a gun culture problem, but it's so safe, like, even that isn't enough to, like, outdo the fact that, like, America, at least cities in America, are pretty safe places. And of course, it's a first world country where there's very high levels of income, so of course you're going to have, comparatively less crime here than in somewhere like in Central or South America, because income levels are higher, people don't want for as much. in fact, cars in America are more dangerous than guns, statistically speaking. Those mushrooms are a trap for anybody who comes across them.
Orphanage in America are worse than the outcomes of like a family in Mexico. Like,
Yeah.
like, would you want to be separated from your... Like, how would you feel if this was happening a different way? Like, you and your family, when you were a kid, like, moved to Sweden, but then your parents, like, got deported, but they, like, kept you... Would you rather be with your family in America, or would you rather be in, like, the state lordship of Sweden? Like, which would be preferable to you?
Well, whichever's the better nation has better opportunities.
You don't... It's so... I think you're looking at this from a very reductive perspective.
I do have to go. I apologize.
I fucking pussy dope.
I would like us to continue this conversation sometime, though, if you ever have the opportunity.
Yeah, no worries. You should look into fascism, because you really like broke your back trying to find.
This guy is a fascist. This was just before conservatives really started identifying with fascism as a label, and before they started really like. Before the mainstream political line of conservatives was like, oh, you lefties will call anything fascism, as they're doing the fascism, and also refusing to condemn fascism. Yeah. So, let's see
every possible justification for ignoring the mistreatment of black people in the criminal justice system, and ignoring the mistreatment of legal asylum seekers at the southern border. I'm just saying, like, I debate a lot of fascists. It's totally okay. Like, we can still have a fun convo. I think that a lot of Republicans are turning that direction anyway, so you'll be in good company.
Accepting fascists. Woke.
Yes. I'm sure if you want to declare fascist, then that's fine. You have every right to call whatever you want, you know.
Because we live in a free country. But if only the people at the border knew that.
Well, you know.
Have a good one.
Yeah. You too.
All right. Holy shit.
Damn. Okay. What a debate. I think actually that was a very that was a good debate for like modularity, if that makes sense. It feels like there was one consistent through line. It was very easy to analyze, I think. Obviously Vaush did great. That guy looked like a bumbling fool at whenever he wasn't just being evil, and ultimately he is evil, as are all people who hold a conservative worldview and support conservative policy positions. But it's okay. You don't need to feel guilty as a product of me calling you evil, because it costs $0 for you to start not being evil. But yeah, the through line there was basically, they were talking about race, they talked about immigration, and every time that the conservative guy opened his mouth to say something, it was all from the perspective of defending human misery at the hands of the state, and nothing that he said indicated any sort of support for the Constitution, or any sort of any of the usual talking points that conservatives used to really love of freedom and liberty and all that. Like, this guy doesn't care much about that, and it's debates like this and exchanges like this are a very good argument in favor of informed simplicity. That you can pretend to be an intellectual and say, oh, everything is shades of gray, but ultimately at the end of the day, some people are just evil, and political movements sometimes are just evil, such as the case with conservatism and fascism. They are just movements that advocate for making the world worse for more people, and is why they are never remembered favorably by the history books. But yeah, I think that's mostly what I have to say about that debate. They believe they are improving the world, so they're not evil. Evil means that there's an axiomatic difference of like normative ethics. People who are evil do not believe that they are evil. They believe the evil things that they are doing are good. Conservatives believe that suffering is good. They believe they're the good guys. But at the end of the day, they still support human suffering, especially against marginalized people. They simply justify it by saying that marginalized people are degenerates, or in this guy's case, criminals. That makes them evil. You know? If somebody were aware of the moral reprehensibility of their positions and sort of accepted it, like Glenn Greenwald or Tucker Carlson types, we call them grifters because they're shiftless and don't have any real values. People who are more genuine, and that's a different kind of evil. People who are more genuine, like this guy, Conservativehypehouse, are just evil to their core. Because they believe that in order for the world to be a better place, you have to purge the degenerates from society. In his case, that means black people and immigrants. But yeah. And of course, you would not call that person evil if you were conservative because they would believe the same things that you do. But because I believe in the value of human happiness and freedom, that person is evil to me, and conservatives are evil to me. Because they do not believe in the concepts of human happiness and human freedom as good things. They believe those foster degeneracy. Understand that although this may sound like a caricature, this is more or less true for every single conservative on planet Earth. That they support things that increase the amount of human suffering, and if they are presented with evidence, like this guy was, in the form of like the legal norms of the immigration system being violated, international law being violated, statistics about crime in black communities, racial minority communities, and whatever, being mostly explained by racism above all else, even when they're presented with evidence that a descriptive claim that they're making is wrong, that no, the thing you support is bad, actually, they won't accept that they're wrong. They won't be convinced. They'll just shift their position or shift their claim to something else because the core position is something that they recognize is optically bad for them, which is that human suffering is good. At least for degenerates. But like I said, any conservatives that are out there watching, it costs $0 to not be evil. So, you can do that shit for free. You don't have to be evil. And of course I can almost hear the comments or whatever now, oh, he thinks he's so much better than you. That's because I am so much better than you, because I don't believe in human misery. It's not a difficult bar to clear, if you can believe it. Anyways, yeah, very interesting debate. It was genuinely it was genuinely fascinating to see that there were several points where I thought the mask would sort of slip off entirely, but it never really did for that guy. There were some places in which it did slip off to a degree. But, he didn't get as mask off as modern conservatives and modern fascists, especially, are comfortable with doing. Because, in 2020, which is when this debate happened, conservatives were still, in some part, going through the trouble to not appear the evil bastards that they are. Aren't you evil when you've had problems with your past, at least, traumatizing levels of character and their own knowledge, research, creating their beliefs? Most of the time, who won't learn, even this guy didn't. No, what I mean by evil, like I said, if somebody is evil, that means that they have a fundamental axiomatic difference of values than somebody else. Evil is a relative term. So to conservatives, I am evil because I believe in the rights of marginalized communities. I believe in freedom and happiness as good things. Those are very basic axiomatic values, which means that you can't go any further to justify that. There's like the cycle of, oh, I believe this is good. Why? Because I believe this other thing is good. Why? Because I believe this other thing is good. The axioms are the point at which you can't go any further back. And when there's a difference in axioms, in fact, a very big difference, that is where you get the basis of good and evil, which again, relative terms. So clearly, this guy is starting from a different axiomatic position. The Conservative Hype House was starting from a different axiomatic position than myself or somebody like Vaush would. This guy does not believe in the concepts of, human flourishing as a good thing. He doesn't believe in the concept of like fucking inclusivity of marginalized people in society as a good thing. And that makes him evil, because this is an irreconcilable difference of opinion that leads to substantially and like starkly different outcomes in the world when implemented on a policy level. And yeah, if past me had an opinion as abhorrent as a modern conservative or Nazi, then I would say that past me is evil. Fortunately, I've never really had opinions like that. At least not to the degree that this guy did. But yeah, people are very hesitant to use the term evil because it's a very strong term of condemnation, and sometimes, admittedly, sounds quite cartoonish. But, if conservatives didn't want me to call them evil, they could just stop being cartoonish, and, that would be that. And again, to address the part about, like, learning from your mistakes or whatever, in this guy's mind, he has made no mistakes. Like, according to his ethical framework, imprisoning migrants in camps like this is not a mistake. That is a feature of his moral worldview. He believes that is good. But yeah, I think I have ample justification to call people like that evil. And, more or less every conservative is like that person. Because they don't believe in any of the, like, law and order or seemingly defensible concepts that they think they believe, or that they will say that they believe. Ultimately, it just takes a little bit of clarifying questions to strip back the mask enough to see that, what you actually support consistently is just when marginalized people experience great suffering, or, when there is great hierarchy in the world and all that. Fifth, I think? Alright, I've waffled for long enough, I think. Future me in editing, cut the video there. Hope you guys enjoy the debate review. Again, very straightforward debate review, astonishingly so.